the Schengen area is indirectly related to the movement of persons. While the original treaty of the European Union gives the right of EU nationals to cross over the border, the Schengen area deals with the abolition of border control at the internal borders of the European Union. That is, for example, the removal of the border control between Italy and France. The idea of removing the control at the border, but keeping controls at any point in time, at any place where it may be necessary for the authorities to do their checks that need to be done, is intended to encourage citizens and residents of states to travel to other member states for the purposes of business and pleasure. It is much easier to cross a border if there is no control than it is if you're going to have to show your passport every time, ask questions whether it's for business or for pleasure, and any other formality that may be needed. In fact, today one would say that the Schengen area, together with the Euro, are the most visible signs of European integration and of peace on the European continent. In borders where previously gunfire used to be exchanged very frequently, now it is possible just to cross from one side to another without any issue. The Schengen area started officially in 1985 when it was an agreement signed between the governments of the Benelux Union, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, who in their own right had created a free trade travel area for them, and the Federal Republic of Germany and the French Republic to abolish gradually checks at their common borders. The Schengen area became very successful and other EU member states opted to join. Eventually, in 1990, the agreement was upgraded into a proper convention, and in 1997, with the Amsterdam Amendments that came into force in May 1999, the Schengen Convention was annexed to the treaty. So, in a nutshell, the abolition of control involves a common set of rules that people must observe when crossing the EU external border. So this necessitates a common visa policy. If someone, let's say from Argentina, needs a visa to travel to France, then the European countries have to agree whether they need a visa or not to travel from Argentina to Europe, and it has to be one decision. So either the Argentinians need a visa for all the member states participating in the area, or they need for none. Then obviously, not just the harmonization of conditions, but this necessitates enhanced police cooperation and stronger judicial cooperation, for example, in case of cross-border surveillance and hot pursuit. So if, let's say, a fugitive is running across a national border, then have to be ways of how a car chase, for example, won't stop at the border, but can continue, because otherwise criminals would be able to take advantage of the lack of control of the border. So this has been complemented by the SIS, which is the Schengen Information System, which will enable member states to share information and to do law enforcement together. Today, the Schengen acquis has grown, and it has included many checks and many enlargements, not only EU countries, but even countries of the EEA are part of the Schengen area. So Iceland, Norway and Liechtenstein are part of the Schengen area. UK and Ireland, when the UK was a member state, had an opt-out. Today this opt-out only applies to Ireland. Well, the UK wanted to opt out for their own reasons, while Ireland wanted to have a free travel area with the UK, then it had no choice but also to apply for an opt-out in order to keep the Irish border open. So today, Ireland is not obliged to join Schengen. All the other countries participate in Schengen. And the last full edition was Croatia, which joined in 2023, and Romania and Bulgaria have joined in 2024, so far only for their sea and their borders. Eventually, they will be able also to include the land border. So at the moment, there are still land control at the border. Now, the treaty of Schengen, that is the EU treaty in which Schengen forms part now, enables also the imposition of temporary controls, should it be necessary for certain events, or if it may be necessary, for example, for control of terrorist activities and for control of migration. So countries can impose temporary controls. Switzerland, which is not part of the EEA and not part of the EU, is also allowed to participate in Schengen in 2008 onwards. So people can cross from neighbouring countries into Switzerland without having to show passport or control. This is essential so that people can move freely without an issue. Microstates, including Andorra, the Vatican City, Monaco, San Marino, can also maintain an open or semi-open border with the Schengen countries. Obviously, this may be subject to some random checks, and it may be subject also to certain territories outside the EU, which are technically part of the EU. They are outside Europe, not outside the EU, can also form part of the Schengen area. For example, one can refer to French Guiana, which extends the Schengen area to the borders of Brazil in Latin America. Now, how does a Schengen border look? If you look at the slide, it's very easy. You find welcome to Austria, welcome to France, and literally it's just crossing the road. It's an open area. We won't notice that a town or a village may be spread into different member states. One can even have a look at the border between Belgium and the Netherlands, where literally there are restaurants that are literally on the border. You can have a coffee in Belgium while your partner or your colleague can have a coffee in the Netherlands. So this shows the success of the Schengen area. Easy travel, no contacts with the authorities, and on the other hand, the fact that you have an open border, this has been strengthened and supplemented by more control at the border, at the external border. That is, for example, if Poland is controlling the border between Russia and the European Union, then Poland is doing much more greater job on behalf of all the member states to ensure that only people who are entitled to enter the European Union will enter. So in this case, once you enter Poland, then you can move freely across the European Union. Crossing the external border is becoming tougher, more difficult, there are more controls. In the near future, the European Union is also going to introduce electronic control at border control. You no longer need to stamp your passport, but everything will be done electronically through fingerprints, etc. This is very much what the United States do when you enter the United States, and everything will be controlled, and it will enable more control at fighting crimes and terrorism. The Schengen information system remains the backbone of the Schengen cooperation, which would enable profiling for potential criminals, control for the visa information system, control databases about crimes and criminality, whatever it may be needed, so that the member states will be able to enjoy free circulation among themselves, but stronger borders at the outside. In this way, the Europeans will feel more integrated together, they can move more freely to another, you can have more trade, which will result in more affluence, and more affluence will bring more peacetime and will put the prospects of war further and further away. We have seen in the past that when Europeans don't trust each other, they end up fighting each other. France and Germany fought each other several times before the Second World War. Each time France and Germany invades France, or France invades Germany. When the French and the German, together with the other Europeans, learn to trust each other, we have the era of the Pax Europa and Europe, where we might disagree on a refund, we might disagree on a law dealing with the environment, but certainly we agree that killing each other is not the solution.